I'd been sat waiting for about half an hour when I got a notification to pick up a pizza and deliver it to a home address. I'd been working nights delivering for Frankie's Pizzas for about 6 weeks. It wasn't what you'd call a hard job, and it helped pay some of the bills whilst I got myself through college. Before my coworker even gave me the pizza, she warned me that the man who'd placed the order didn't sound right. I asked her what she meant. She said he sounded sketchy, and that she didn't like the sound of him. I said, "What do you mean?" She said he sounded drunk or out of it or something like that. Either way, she didn't like the way he came over. I thanked her for the heads up and told her I'd be careful. Delivering pizzas was easy, but it came with its own set of risks, especially if you worked alone at night. I'd delivered to more than my fair share of drunks and drug addicts who'd try and either rob me or snatch the pizza without paying, so I was used to dealing with people like that. Sometimes it was easier just to let them take it rather than put your life at risk over a $9.99 pizza. The address I was going to was on the outskirts of town, and it took me about 15 minutes to get there. It was one of those streets where the houses were small and well spaced apart. I pulled up outside and looked at the property. The garden was overgrown and the house looked unkept. The windows were dirty, like they hadn't been cleaned in a while. I remembered what my coworker had said back at the shop, and I started to get an uneasy feeling about it. I checked the address again, and this was definitely the right place. As I walked up the path towards the front door, I glanced briefly at the windows to see if I could see any movement. When I got to the door, I saw 2 parcels covered in a thin layer of dust, stacked one on top of the other. I thought it was strange because who would leave parcels outside and not take them in? I knocked 3 times on the door, but to my surprise it creaked open about an inch or so. And even though I was beginning to feel uncomfortable about the whole situation, I decided to call through the gap in the door in the hope that someone would answer, but I got no response. I then sent a text to my coworker and asked her for some advice. She messaged me back within a minute or so, telling me to be careful and to either call the police or take a look inside, as the occupant might need assistance. I put my phone into my back pocket and slowly pushed open the door. I called out to whoever might be inside as I made my way into the hallway. I said I was the pizza delivery guy, but again no one answered. The place stank like something had gone rotten. Letters and flyers were scattered about the hallway floor. I ventured further in until I came to what looked like the living room. The furniture was old, like from the 1960s or 70s, and had that damp, musty smell to it. The wallpaper was also old and faded, and the ceiling was heavily stained with nicotine. The whole place clearly hadn't been cleaned or maintained in a while. The smell was also a lot worse than it was before, and it was beginning to make me feel extremely nauseous. I covered my mouth with my hand and took a few steps inside. To my left, I could see a high-backed chair at the far end of the room, and what looked like somebody sitting in it. It was too dark to make out whether it was a man or a woman. I could only think that whoever it was must either be asleep or have hearing problems, because they hadn't answered when I'd called out to them. Something didn't feel right, and I had one of those odd churning feelings in the pit of my stomach. I slowly made my way over towards the chair, and at the same time I held up the pizza box in front of me so they'd know why I was there. I'd almost gotten up close to them when I stopped dead in my tracks. I didn't need to go any closer to see that it was an elderly man in his late 70s or early 80s. He was dead and had been for some time, as there were flies and maggots crawling all over his face and chest. I almost threw up when I noticed how badly stained his shirt was from all the body fluids. I ran outside and threw up on the grass, and I started to shake and feel cold as the shock began to hit me. I then called the police and waited for them to arrive. And after giving them a statement and my contact details, I left and went back to the pizza place. When I finally got back, my coworker was out the back taking a cigarette break. I told her about what had happened. She looked horrified and stood silent for a minute. She then asked me who I thought called and ordered the pizza, but I just said I didn't know. I had my own thoughts about it, but kept them to myself. I've been past that house a couple of times since, and it's all done up nice now with somebody else living there. But no matter how nice that place looks, I'll never forget what happened there that night.